Well, ar an gédal sias tó fircin fóil se ró bhéileag agus áthas ar am héin agus má bhain céile saifhín gohfuil seans an cosailib agus se bhíh ceiliúra an ggóciad blian. It's very great. I'm delighted to have the opportunity, and Sabina and I were so pleased that you were able to join us this afternoon for this celebration, an important one of recognising the 200 years of existence of the Irish Coast Guard. I think it's a very good idea as well that you reverted to the original name in the year 2000, but also I think I'm so pleased to have the opportunity of congratulating the representatives of the 44 Coast Guard units around the country, both your permanent staff and the wonderful 80 full-time staff and the 1,000 volunteers. The volunteers are so important. Looking at the list from where you have all come, you would immediately say they're from some very beautiful parts of Ireland, but they're also from places of high risk. And I do appreciate very much the incredible contribution, and it is a very practical kind of active citizenship that those 1,000 volunteers provide. I should say as well, the Coast Guard now is very much has adapted itself to the new circumstances and taken advantage of the advances in technology. But I think it's very appropriate to remember the history of the Coast Guard Service when it was dealing with horses and dealing with the movement of equipment in what people would regard now as difficult circumstances, but they were very, very effective. So it is appropriate that the 200th anniversary is being celebrated. And it's appropriate. We're delighted here in Áras and Uachtaráin to be able to join with you in that. I should say I have said as well that while many of the areas you come from are ones of great scenic beauty, and that they are, but are however places of risk, I do say that looking at it from the distance I do hope that our citizens who undertake different kinds of activities realise that they are under an obligation not to increase that risk and therefore put those who are in turn making the response at risk, because it's an opportune time on this anniversary as well to pay tribute not just to the present members and both permanent staff and volunteers, but also to all those who have gone before, and in particular to remember those who have lost their lives in acts of rescue. I think that generally people regularly and appropriately pay tribute to the importance of volunteering, but it is a very particular kind of volunteering to be available on a 24-hour basis on call. And it is something, of course, that involves the commitment of citizenship, not just for the men and women involved, but also for their families. For the way that the call-out works. I'm just interested as well, I have fascinated was recently on the visit of the German president of the Maltese president. We had an opportunity, the German president. Pardon? Portuguese president. Thank you. I get them mixed up. But they all the ones I mentioned have something in common. They're related to the sea. And we had an opportunity of visiting Ireland's new research vessel. And later I have been down in Cork for the conference on the oceans. And there was a wonderful phrase that somebody used on that occasion about ocean literacy. It is, I think we're coming into a period of time, whereas years ago, when I was in the Dáil, I would speak about turning the face of Ireland to the sea again. Now we realise that the oceans are so important, and it is so important that in relation that we preserve them. And I know that your own service will have an even more important role in response to climate change. And in response also, as well as that, what I hope is a developing international awareness on the importance of protecting marine biodiversity. I think that all of these are new people misuse the word challenges. I prefer to say they're new responsibilities in relation, if we are to be real about protecting biodiversity. And we are in such a perilous place in relation to how much we have lost on both land and sea. As well as this, I think there is something about those who volunteered from the different communities, that it is an act of solidarity. And I think I've mentioned the new technology. It's very important that information be acquired quickly, accurate information. And I think in relation to the whole role of communications, you have a very, very important role. But you don't need me to tell you that. You know it yourselves. And you're so welcome here for that reason. We're just coming out, I suppose, of the shadows of COVID. Not fully, but I think there again, and you had a particular role to play in relation to that. And I thank you as President of Ireland for that. Tris Liam Levis Gam of Weekesliv. I was, of course, also very familiar from my visit to Creasla and that tragedy of what you were involved in, the response to that too. And that is so much appreciated. I think what I think is very, very important as well is that I have paid tribute to past members, and particularly those who have been lost or those who have suffered very severe injury. But I think what defines both your permanent and volunteer service is the courage. It is a very incredible moral action in itself to take the risks on behalf of others, but also, as well as that, as I have been describing the changes taking place from responding to what would have been the traditional works and challenges, but to the flexibility that has been required in relation to dealing with new conditions. Gam of Weekesliv agus Tris Liam Liver Fathers Gocrat atá Jintagi agus Grimgar Banacht don Tauki Nilene Everest arm ach Gameche Glehanú an Tam Galéir na Dúlanata Anu Hiv on Meditaid Staluiv. So our son winter here in Gam Weekesliv. So I do thank you indeed for your 200th anniversary. I do thank you as well for your continuing service and indeed for all that you will be required to do. I thank you on behalf of all of the citizens of Ireland, both those who have in the past benefited from your service and those in the future who will do so. Míle buíochas go raibh maith againn.